Hi there, I'm Lucas Martell. I'm the creator of Walkabout Mini Golf, and we're standing on Myst Island. This was one of my favorite games growing up, and I realized just chatting with Rand and a bunch of the folks at Cyan how, both for me, but a lot of the people on the team, how much it impacted us and kind of even got us into making games and making animations. So when they responded so well to the idea of letting us put a mini golf course on Myst Island, we ran with it, and we're just so glad that we finally get to share this with the world. So come on, let's give you a little tour of some of the modifications we've made to Myst Island. So, of course, you have to start off on the dock. One of the most difficult things probably about creating the course was actually just figuring out our linear walkabout path. The island was made to be sort of like more interconnected, and we really needed to find a way to get people to kind of have that walkabout path that would hit all the highlights, but still flowed from a design standpoint of actually creating the island was one of the easiest because Cyan actually gave us the model of the island, and we were able to modify it, and we did end up remodeling, I think, everything because we needed it to fit our low poly aesthetic. But yeah, it's one-to-one. It is exactly, it's all based on the actual island, so everything is amazing. Just having things in the right place really make it feel authentic. This is probably one of the better examples of some of the new mechanics that we've been working on. So this was actually one of the harder holes to design, but the gears are just such an iconic thing. We knew we needed to do something special. If you even toss a ball on the trigger, you'll be able to see it in action there. But we were really looking for a mechanic that would give us the feeling of Myst, but it still needed to be something that we dialed in and was something that was repeatable. And so ultimately we settled on this trigger system that essentially there's all these panels that you can put over and that activate all sort of mechanics. So it's like a mini golf based interface that everything on the island you can interact in the language of mini golf, but it really opened up a lot of fun new hole designs that we can do, as well as a lot of challenges, because as we learned, doing multiplayer puzzle solving is a real challenge. It's amazing how complicated something even as simple as like a floor switch becomes when you get into multiplayer. We settled on a pretty good balance in that a lot of them are not necessarily puzzles. There's one or two that are, but in general you could also just beat them through trial and error. So we didn't want to make it overly challenging. But in general, especially on the easy course, it's something that if you hit the trigger, something good's going to happen. On the hard course, you have to start thinking a little bit more, and we really sort of like let hard be pretty dang hard from that standpoint. Hole 4 was actually one of the modifications that we needed to make to the island for our walkabout, and it was something that we had come up with, and we wanted something that felt still very Myst, even though it wasn't part of the original island. And so we kind of had to blast a hole through the mountain to get a little bit of a passageway through here, so that you wouldn't have to backtrack. Everybody at Cyan, I was amazed at how open they were to some of the changes that we needed to make, and also just in general how open they were to us taking the ideas of Myst and having fun with them and inventing our own way of sort of like reinterpreting things in this sort of like mini golf format. Henning Kachi, our lead course designer, he is a huge Myst fan. He replayed it for, I don't know, the 4th or 5th time probably as we were making this course, and really took the time to get all of those little details that you don't have to know to appreciate, but if you have played Myst, there's a lot of little details that you're going to pick up of like, oh, how that particular puzzle turned into a mini golf hole. And this is actually a great example of, spoiler alert, the solution is right up there, but you've got to play through those constellations in mini golf form in order to unlock the hole in the middle of the room here. Let's keep on going. One of the another little layout change that we had to do. It has a very special place in a lot of people's hearts, and there was some thought of whether we were actually going to play across the top of it, and we found a way that we could move the grave over a little bit. So we respectfully exhumed her and got her just moved a little bit to the side to make room for all the mini golfers coming through. But like I said, it was a lot of fun to take some liberties and to just really sort of like go to town on Myst, and just how open they were to the changes that we needed to make, and even very, very supportive. They've been pretty involved throughout the whole process. In fact, just yesterday, he and I did a full playthrough of everything. So yeah, it was great getting a chance to chat with him and also just pick his brain. It's amazing that Cyan is still independent. They're actually about the same size as us on the Walkabout side of things. It's a really, really cool company that's managed to stay alive in a very difficult industry for 30, almost 40 years. I think they've been in business. They've gone from, cutting edge with, being one of the first games to do CD-ROM to now one of the first people doing like Abduction, I think was their first VR game. One of the very, very earliest VR in the new wave of VR. I'm gonna take a little ride on the tree. This was actually one of the more challenging holes to do because we had so many ideas that we tried a lot of different things, and ultimately we ended up we did have to simplify a few things in order to make sure that we were making it accessible. For some people, mini golf is challenging enough. We didn't want to turn it into you must mini golf and you must also do a brain teaser at the same time. So ultimately we did have to simplify a couple of our ideas. Let me fly down here and I'll lead you over to the cabin. So we're kind of coming at the island from again, maybe a different path than you would have seen in the original game. But one of the other things that we've also started doing that we're hoping to start adding to more courses. We've also added a lot of interactivity to the course, and that really plays into the fox hunt in the hard mode. So you can actually flip all of the marker switches, you can come in and open up the safe. There's a good bit of stuff that is interactivity stuff that we have never done before. So we put a lot of new systems in place for this particular course. It's really going to open up what we can do even in future courses. We definitely felt that with the fox hunts and the hidden balls, Myst, it's a puzzle game. We can make things a little bit more challenging in Myst, especially for finding some of those collectibles. And I'll say even the fox hunt is way more elaborate and has a couple of endings, so be sure to play through it a second time and see if you can collect. There might be a couple of putters in there that you can collect. Hole 9 was one of my favorites that Henning designed, and it really, it was something that I was nervous whether it was going to work at all. And as soon as he did it and got it up and functioning, it was just so like, wow, that feels exactly like Myst. And yet at the same time, sort of like, it's just fun and it's just very physically just like, the mechanics really captures everything that Myst had going for it. So yeah, it felt like a great way to sort of bring the puzzles into mini golf format. This is also a great hole to point out some of the great work by Craig Kohlmeyer, our lead technical artist. He is kind of a Myst originalist, so he even went back and kind of found a way to take some of the art style of the original game, and like the green water, it just has a very unique, very specific look, and it really feels so nostalgic but also feels modern. The clock tower, also one of the very iconic locations from the original game. This is one that we tried to actually put a hole in here, but there's just so much going on in it that it kind of lost the things that made it distinct, so we ended up settling for that you play to the island outside of it. But we were able to keep all of the mechanics and everything that they gave us. Again, the fact that we actually got the real models just helped us stay authentic and helped us really sort of like get those little details in there that feels very comfortable and familiar for anyone who has played. Craig Kohlmeyer did an amazing job with the lighting and making it feel very familiar, but also plussing it and just giving it something that feels very authentic to the original Myst, but also feels very like ours, like a Walkabout interpretation of Myst Island, not necessarily trying to copy. It definitely feels pretty new. And I will also say night mode in particular is absolutely stunning. And just all of the lighting work that was done in that really makes the island feel brand new and yet familiar at the same time. When we had the call with Rand and Eric and Hannah over at Cyan, the second they got into the near final hard mode was pretty spectacular to see, because they were kind of seeing Myst Island in a way that even they had never really seen before. Something that Rand has said multiple times is that the very first time that we went in, the weirdest thing to him wasn't the fact that that it was our version, or even the fact there was mini golf on Myst Island. The thing that was kind of most strange to him was that there were other people in there with him. And he had even been on Myst Island several times in VR, but never with anybody else. And so it is like, in some ways, that is even the bigger change to Myst Island than the fact that we added some mini golf holes to it. Just being able to experience it with other people. So this is another one. We even spoiler alert, we even used the exact same 59 volts. The solution to the original game, they also have some randomized solutions to the puzzles. So if you want to play it fresh on their current version that's also on Quest, you could play it with the randomized puzzle solutions. There's a few spoilers that people might pick up from playing the mini golf version. It feels very much like skee ball, and because we're in practice mode, you won't see exactly what happens, but yeah, you essentially are able to, if you hit it in the right spot, it will move your ball down into the hole, and if you miss, then it will send you off into oblivion. This was also, I think, a great example of what we were trying to do, where the fact that it says 59 volts is actually not the thing that tips you off. It's the fact that it is the one wall that raises up that is pointed the other way, which really telegraphs what you need to do. We built some of it in Gravity Sketch, but probably less than many other courses, because we had a lot of the model and the layout from the get-go. So it really wasn't as big of a lift on the early on layout design side of things, but did come back in, and I remember coming back in and doing like we had to replace all the rocks in the ground and everything, and that was all Gravity Sketch, like we've done many of our other courses. So yeah, it was also a very surreal feeling the very first time we brought it into Gravity Sketch, and we were in a multiplayer room in Gravity Sketch. And we all sort of like had to sort of like look at each other like, wait, because we had to break some stuff. The very first thing that we had to do was get on a Myst Island, and once we knew what we wanted to do, we had to actually start tearing it apart and starting to move some stuff around. It felt very blasphemous, but also it was also a lot of fun just to sort of have that freedom to take something that we know and love and kind of redesign it as needed to happen. I believe the butterflies were actually something from, I don't know if that happened in real Myst or if it was just the VR version. I forget which version of it they actually added those. But yeah, there are definitely some elements that we've stolen from the more recent versions of Myst as well. This is 13, our classic ship fountain puzzle. But let's actually move on to 14. And even 15 was another one of the holes that we said from the get-go, we were trying to come up with something really, really clever, and we did add a couple little things, but the reality is just that the pathway up to the rocket ship really just kind of feels like a mini golf hole to begin with. So that was one of the few holes that we really didn't have to sort of like invent quite as much. We added some interesting mechanics to help make it a little bit more interactive. But yeah, this was one of those cases where it was already kind of designed exactly like we needed it to be, and we were just able to go in and put some walls and a green in. So I'm also really happy with how the actual interior of the rocket ship is, and you're playing on a pre-release build, so you're not even quite seeing the final version of it and just all of the detail and everything. But this was another very kind of classic Myst puzzle that a lot of people come in here and I remember exactly. Yeah, takes you kind of back to that moment in time if you played the original game 30 years ago. That takes you back in time just being in the space. So on the additional courses and licensing side of things, we have a lot more courses in progress. I think we've got 12 that are active. And then we've even got another 7 or 8 of them that we're starting to do some early design on, but it's not 100% whether they will, how far we'll go with those particular courses. But very, very good chance that we'll make all of those as well. And yeah, we do have one more licensed course that's going to be hitting probably midway through next year that we haven't announced yet, and we're chatting with several other folks. So there's definitely more licensed courses. Our general approach with the licensed courses, though, is always something that something that we feel is going to make a great course and something that we and a lot of the audience actually wants to see. And we personally love the courses that are a bit less obvious is maybe the best way to say it. Like, even Myst Island was one of those. Like, I read a couple of the comments when he first announced it, and it was sort of like, I think one of my favorites was, yeah, mini golf on Myst Island. So stupid, I can't wait. Like, yes, like that's kind of the, I kind of love that's what people are saying. But yeah, it's sort of like, it doesn't make sense on the surface until you think about it, or as soon as you say it, it's like, oh yes, I want that. Like, Walkabout Mini Golf in the world of Jim Henson's Labyrinth. Like, yes, I didn't know that was not on my 2022 bingo card, but I am so here for it. That's kind of the reaction that we love to get with a lot of our licensed courses. This is definitely one of the hardest courses that we have made. It's still, I think, very fun and very approachable. There's a couple of holes that are harder than others. The mechanics of it definitely give it a fun, very different flair, but that was one of the things that we decided early on, that, you know, we're doing Myst. Myst was a notoriously pretty difficult game. It's okay if we lean into the difficulty level a little bit and have some. It was more important for us to have fun with it and make it something different, because this is a mechanic and just a vibe that we're probably not going to get to do again in this way. So we kind of wanted to take it to some place just new and different, that we haven't been able to go as a game for ourselves. So yeah, the puzzles, the mechanics, everything just has a little slightly raised difficulty, but all in good fun, I would say. So. Oh yeah, I'll wait and I'll come back down here. The elevator and up to the tower. This was one of the things early on. We knew that we had to end here. The interesting thing, we did actually have to redesign a lot of this tower quite a bit. And it was also kind of funny because even in the VR game, the tower was always kind of a little bit cheated in terms of space. This view was something that you never actually quite got in the actual game, of being able to sort of like stand on the balcony and look out over the rest of the island. We thought it was super fun to give people that as sort of a reward. As far as the other ages, we talked about it. I think it was something that pretty early on we realized that the great thing about Myst Island was it was already one place, and it's also the best known of all of the places because it has it was the hub. It was where everyone started. Even if they never finished the game, they spent some time on Myst Island, as well as the fact that it's still featured in all of their box art, their cover art. Like, even people who have never played Myst look at the island and they still recognize it just because the game is and was so sort of prevalent in pop culture. And then the other thing that we loved about Myst Island was also the fact that, in a way, it is kind of almost like a mini golf course, where it has an element of each age. It has the stone ship age, it has the mechanical age, it has the Selenetic age, all sort of on the island. And we did make a couple of additions, like adding some of the Selenetic elevator up from the generator room. We added a few things like that, but it just felt like it already kind of had that perfect mini golf sensibility of taking a bunch of things from different places and putting them all into a single place, onto a single island. So we just loved that and felt that it was the perfect way to do Myst. We're working on a lot more courses. We've already got our slate all the way through 2023, and we're even starting to work on some courses for 2024. So keep playing. We've got a lot of new features coming out, even with the new menu that launched in this. There's a lot of new features that are starting to get unlocked that are now much more doable. The irony is that we realize this might also be a few people's first time that they've ever played Myst, might be in mini golf form, which feels a little sacrilegious, but we hope they have a good time and check out the actual Myst game as well.